يبقى topic of today is difference between economic development between countries. طب what is economic development يا شباب؟ Economic development has got to do with the economic welfare. طب economic welfare is it GDP of the country أو real GDP أو GDP per income? It is this and more. يبقى if I am talking about economic development of between countries, I want to see the differences between economic welfare between the different countries. How does it matter? And what is the difference between what are the conditions that will be there in a developing country versus a developed country? طيب, what is economic growth? What is economic development? It is, as we said, it's wider than economic growth. يبقى it involves economic growth, but also involves what? Involves improved living standard of people. يبقى هنا living standard of people. لو تفتكروا ان احنا sometimes some economists they use GDP to find the living standard of people, a better use of the standard of living standard is the Human Development Index. Okay, طيب يبقى this is one thing. I want to or this will show improved living standard. يبقى real GDP per head, okay, and life expectancy at the birth, وكمان انه literacy rate. But this is how it goes. طيب, again, reducing poverty. يبقى again, economic development means that I am having less poverty in the country. Less بقى absolute poverty, less relative poverty. المهم مفيش poverty as less poverty as possible. Expanding the range of economic and social choices. Again, this is one of the things. And if you are capable, if you have freedom of speech in your country, if you are having more choices about مثلا where to live, what to get, what career to take, and so on, then you are having economic welfare is good. Increasing freedom and self-esteem. Okay, but these are the contents of economic development. It is the living standard, it is reduced poverty, economic and social choices, and self-esteem. يبقى as economies develop, they will improve in these aspects. Okay? Type at the very first beginning, if a country that is less economically developed, what will happen? They will have what is enough to sustain basic life sustaining, يعني they will have items that will allow them to have basic life sustaining. يعني basic food, basic shelter, basic food shelter, and so on. Food, shelter, clothing, and so on. But they are having they are having the basics, no extra choices. No choices in that. But as the economy develops, there will be enough for them to survive. Yani there will be enough to sustain life, and there will be more. There will be surplus. In this situation, if there is a surplus, I will be having surplus. I'll be having choices. I will be having. Consumers will have to choose what products to consume. They will make choices of where to live, how to live. The choices related to the working condition, to where to work, and so on. But at the very first beginning, if the country is less economically developed, they will only have basic life sustaining products, only to maintain, living in very primitive houses, getting very basic food, fruits and vegetables, uncooked, fresh, okay, and so on. لكن هنا I have choices. I have a lot of restaurants. I have a lot of houses, choices of houses, and so on. If I am more economically developed. يبقى the rate at and level of economic. Good afternoon, y'all. The rate and level of development will vary between one country to another. يبقى you find that some countries are having low economic development, some countries are having high economic development. يبقى high economic development, countries with high income per head. يبقى ال GDP income per head اللي هو ايه؟ GDP per capita. Okay, GDP per head or GDP per capita. This shows the income per person in the country. يبقى the income per person. يبقى countries with high income per head have relatively high economic development. ايه الايكونوميك ديفلوبمنت تاني؟ what are the aspects of economic development؟ حاولوا تحفظوا قبل ما تخرجوا من السيشن. aspects of economic development: there is a high living standard for people, there is less poverty, there are more economic and social choices, there is freedom and self-esteem. يبقى a country with a high GDP, with a high income per head is high, they have good living standards, they have good they have more choices, they have high self-esteem and so on. يبقى they tend to have high living standard, high portion of people employed in the tertiary sector, لأن the tertiary sector is the one that is giving producing services. يبقى هنا as the economy develops, then there is more reliance on services. يعني they will enjoy, حتى the people in the country, they will enjoy more of services. What services? Schools, يعني education services, healthcare services, restaurants, cinemas, whatever. They are having high portion of people providing these, employed in these tertiary sectors, and providing these for people who are in need of them. Banks, insurance, and so on. High levels of productivity will be there in that country, high levels of investment. يبقى high level of productivity, إنه there is less waste of the resources in the country. The less waste of the resources in the country, the more output can be produced. كمان there is high investment from which the companies are getting, or firms are getting these investments to produce what is wanted by people. يبقى countries with high economic development will have high economic, high living standards, will have more people employed in the tertiary sector, have greater productivity than other countries, they have a higher level of investments. طب the opposite is for low income per head. Countries with low GDP per head will have lower economic development. يعني they are having lower living standards, they are having a greater portion of poverty, they are having less freedom of choice and so on. They have lower living standards. Okay. خلاص. Do you know the difference between the countries with high income people and countries with low income people؟ يبقى countries with high income people عندي great economic development، عندي عندي living standard is improving, I have more services produced, I have better productivity, and I have more investment, and this is low in the low development countries, or low countries with low low economic development. The United Nations classify countries as the follows. يعني how are we classifying countries in terms of development? The countries that are very high human development, they are scoring high on the human development issue. Countries that are high human development, countries that are medium, and countries that are low human development. يبقى human development in countries can be classified either countries are enjoying high level, very high level, or high level, or medium, or low level. This is according to the UN classification. World Bank classification is dividing it into high income, upper middle income, lower middle income, and low income. Okay, you don't study the classification, but however, you need to understand. يبقى high income, upper middle income, lower middle income, and low income. How do I measure the economic development? I will measure it by the two factors, GDP per head, and this will give me the living standard, will tell me about the living standard. يبقى this is real حتى. Real يعني ايه? What is the real difference between real and GDP per head? And which one is more accurate? مين هيقدر يقول لي؟ What is the difference between real GDP and GDP only؟ من غير كلمة real. حد فيكم عارف؟
Gross domestic product.
Gross domestic product, this is GDP. And how is GDP different than real GDP يا عمر؟ Real GDP is adjusted to inflation يا شباب. يبقى real GDP after we are removing the effect of inflation. فهنا yes, it is adjusted to inflation. Which means what? Which means إنه this is the real output in the country. مش إنه maybe the prices are increased. GDP إيه مشكلتها? Why it's not a good measure؟ لأنه maybe I am producing the same quantity of goods and services, but only I am selling them for a higher price. But this is not reflecting if we are more productive. This is not reflecting that we are having a higher a higher GDP. لكن if I am having, after removing the effect of the inflation, I'm having the value of GDP greater than last year, then in this situation, I am more productive. I'm having economic growth. يبقى real GDP per head. How do I know if economic development is there? I will real GDP, which is a measure. It measures an important aspect of development, which is material living. But it does not measure all aspects of development. Material living يعني income per person. وهي GDP, the real GDP is income per person. Income ده أنا هعمل بيه إيه؟ This income I'll be able to buy, to rent a house from that money. I'll be able to buy a car. I'll be able to get cloth, get food and so on. فهنا I am capable from that income, I am capable of buying materialistic things. فهنا real GDP, they call it, it is said that it is measuring the material living. Okay, it doesn't include other aspects of human development, like what? Like health, okay, like life expectancy, like education, and so on. يبقى HDI is a measure of economic development, which measures the life expectancy at birth. It measures the literacy rate, and it measures the living standard of people. It measures part of the GDP. The living standard is measured by the GDP. خلاص? It has got the GDP and more. HDI is a measure that of economic development, and it includes real GDP and more. Okay. طيب, what are the causes of different economic development between countries? If there are countries that are low income and countries that are high income, okay, what is the difference? Why is that country having high income people and the other country is having low income people? What is the causing this to happen? What is causing this to happen is the differences in طبعا high income people عندهم ايه, countries with high income people عندهم low development, low economic development. Others, they're having high economic development. Why do I have differences in economic development? Could be because of the differences of income. Okay, the differences of income, economic development is lower in countries with low GDP per head. If the country is having little income per person, then it is a lower living standard than another country that is having a higher income per person. Type. A limitation in some people may struggle to afford a good living standard, but there still can be others who are very rich. يبقى هنا with low GDP per head, differences in incomes, يبقى some people may struggle to afford the living, to afford a good living standard, but still can be others who are very rich. Yeah, and this is not a limitation. This is actually an explanation. And this is not a limitation. I will not call it a limitation. This is an explanation. يبقى هنا differences in income in certain countries are having people that are struggling to afford their living, and there are other countries that are having people that are very rich, their incomes are very high. يعني أنا هقول لكم على حاجة إنه مثلا legal minimum wage when يعني مثلا in Canada, let's imagine in Canada you will find that the legal minimum wage يعني I calculated the legal minimum wage ان هما they are taking wage per hour. فالمهم يعني انه should be a person that is only living on the legal minimum wage will be earning $2,000 a month. Okay, this is a poor person, an educated person. يبقى in Canada, a person who is working as a waiter in a restaurant, a worker that is working in Starbucks, in McDonald's, whatever, waiter in these areas, or a cleaner, or he is taking $2,000 a month. He'll be earning that. طيب, convert this into Egyptian currency, ولا convert it into Kuwaiti currency, ولا convert it to any other currency. For us, مثلا, this amount of money in Egypt, it is almost equal, you multiply by 35. ولا البنك ريت امتى كام النهارده؟ حاول اجيب لكم البانك ريت today اعتقد انه 35 او 36. فانا if you multiply it will be a huge number in terms of the Egyptian pounds. The Canadian dollar it's 34. Let's imagine for simplicity it is 35. So 35 times 2000, this means that this is in Canada, a worker will be earning that amount of money. And in Egypt, it translates to, it is equal to 70,000 Egyptian pounds. Do you know in Egypt who takes 70,000 Egyptian pounds a month? What should be your profession عشان تبقى تاخد 70,000 Egyptian pounds a month? Any idea? You are a senior manager. You are a senior manager. You are a professional. يعني ممكن يكون senior manager, ممكن تبقى director, ممكن تبقى, and this is a highly professional. This is high profession would take that. فهنا a worker is in a high living standard country أو how high human development, high economic development. The worker will be taking 2,000, which is almost equivalent to what a what a CEO in another country is taking, ولا what a director is in another country that is taking. فهمتوا حاجة؟ فهمتوا why there is difference in economic development between the countries؟ لأن the incomes of people differ. فطبعا the worker here in Egypt is not taking even, I don't know what do workers take. I'm not sure. Are they taking مثلا 3,000? That would be generous. يعني this is 3,000 Egyptian pounds. That will be generous. يعني not less than $100. Less than $100. Do you understand me?
Yes.
Okay, but there is a difference in economic, there is a difference in incomes between the countries, which leads to what? Which leads to the difference in economic development. Type. يعني I mean in the very poor countries, people are unable to save. My income is low. I can barely afford my living. How can I save? طب if I am not saving, then there won't be money in banks for investors to borrow and for economic growth to happen. يبقى there won't be finances. If people are not saving, money won't be available in banks and there won't be money, funds available for investment by businesses. Type differences in savings due to differences in income per capita. This is related to that. يبقى people are differences in savings. This person that is earning $2,000 مثلا, the cost of living maybe 1,500, فhe's capable of saving 500. And in poor countries, people are doing de-savings rather than saving. What is the meaning of de-saving? يعني you spend more than your income. You spend more than what you have. طب هتجيب منين money يا مس؟ you spend more than you have, you are borrowing. Yeah, people cannot afford, they're living in low income countries. Some of them are borrowing or some of them are using the credit cards to afford their high living expenditure. فهنا differences in savings, low income people or people living in low income countries where barely save, they will not save, whereas the people in high income countries will save. But this means that there will be funds, as I told you, available for investors to borrow and invest for economic growth. But poor people cannot afford to save, and so the savings ratio of a country where the average income is low is likely to be low. If savings are low, then there is lack of finance for investment. هو يا جماعة, if you are saving money, where do you save? You save in your drawer, or in your closet, ولا you save in the bank? Usually people, they save in the bank.
The bank.
So the money that you make available in the bank, it is the money that, or the money that savers are depositing in the bank. This is the money that the bank will use to lend businesses that want to expand or that is in need in finance. طب ما فيش money in the bank, then ما فيش investment in the country. طب again, differences in investment. Countries with low value of capital, goods per workers, will be likely to have low income per head. يعني countries that are very poor, they don't have capital, they don't have machines. If the workers are working in your home country, they are doing manual work, فهنا their productivity level will be falling, will be less than the productivity level in other countries. فمش هيحصل economic growth. يعني our economic growth in that country which is labor intensive will be less than the country that is relying on capital. يعني for example, let's take the field of agriculture. In agriculture, people are certain countries, the people are doing the work manually using their hands and very primitive tools. Like in other countries, there are tractors, there are drones, there is technology, there are automatic water sprinklers that are there to plant or to farm, يعني to plant a plot of land. فهنا that will lead to greater productivity in the country that is relying on capital. Remember, capital can work 24/7. Unlike human beings, they have a capacity to what they can do. فهنا differences in investments between countries. The country that is having more capital per worker, more machines for each and every worker to use, it will be producing a greater output. And if there is a greater output, يعني greater GDP, GDP is one of the factors that is one of the factors that will determine whether you are having economic development or not. يعني whether I am كل لما اجي اكلمكم على جي دي بي ولا اكلمكم على living standards ولا اكلمكم على health ولا اكلمكم على poverty, if these are improving تبقى انا بقى عندي economic development. Clear؟ يبقى less capital for per worker for certain country leads to lower productivity in these countries, so lower GDP, so lower economic development. Difference in population growth. يبقى countries, the poor countries, they are having high levels of birth rate. They are having high levels of dependency ratio. يبقى a lot of dependency ratio in poor countries. Why a lot of dependency ratio؟ لأن هم they are not they give birth to a lot of children. يعني they are not making they are not doing family planning. They don't do family planning. طيب if they have high portion of children being dependent on a small portion of the workers. يبقى children in these countries are greater than the working population. Accordingly, there is high dependency. So the income of the country, when divided on the population, income per head will be low. Some resources which could have been used to improve the quality of life of current population have been used to support the extra members of the population. يبقى instead of using the resources in the country in order to do economic development, in order to become productive, in order مثلا to get machines, to get open factories, to plant farms and so on, ولا plant crops, لا, they use the money in order to support the young children. فهنا that's the point. يبقى differences in population growth. This is where I am having higher growth in less economically developed countries, high population growth, high dependency rate, when the other countries low dependency rate. التانيين, the other ones, the rich countries, they are doing family planning. And because females are more committed to their careers, so they give birth at a later age, at a very late age, they don't give birth to a lot of children. فيبقى في economic development in developed economies and less economic development in less developed economies. Differences in education and healthcare. يبقى education and healthcare is better in countries with high income people, okay, rather than countries with low income people. يبقى low access. Those with low incomes, they have low access or poor quality health. طيب, if you're not healthy, you are not productive. If you're not educated, then you're not productive. How can you, and you will be making mistakes. The less educated, if you're not educated, then you're not qualified. Then you will be doing mistakes. Then you are wasting the resources available in the country. You and others, not only one person, يعني. You and others. That's the point. And the more uneducated people are, the more unskilled they will be, and thus they will be less productive. Okay, another thing is that the more unhealthy a person is, if a person is sick, then he cannot be productive as well. فهنا it could be in the populations with lower income people, they are having less education and less health care, but they are less productive. They are less productive. طبعا productivity is related to the GDP. يبقى less GDP. Differences in size of the primary, secondary, and tertiary. You will find that the less developed economies, they are relying on the primary sector. يعني they are extracting petroleum and selling it. They are fishing and selling the fish. They are farming and selling their fresh crops and so on. But they are, the less developed economies are doing, they rely على primary, whereas the more developed, they rely على tertiary. Okay, يبقى هنا يبقى طيب when you are selling that crop, the primary thing, يعني petroleum is more expensive ولا refined petroleum؟ أو خليني أقول لكم example تاني، ولا مثلا let's imagine cotton as in its raw form is more expensive ولا cotton bed sheets are more expensive؟ cotton as a raw material ولا cotton that is processed into a product? Usually the products are more expensive than the raw materials. يبقى هنا the less economically developed countries, they are relying على primary sector produce. They use that, they get that and sell it abroad. They export it. Like in the other countries, the richer countries, they are taking these raw materials, adding value to them, يعني changing them into a final finished product that is more expensive, than sell them into international markets for more money. يبقى if you are relying, countries that are relying على secondary produce, secondary products and selling them will have greater incomes than the ones that are relying على primary sector services. وكمان ممكن يكون a primary sector product sorry. وكمان ال tertiary sector is the most expensive. Tertiary like education, healthcare, medical يعني. medical medical وفinancial with entertainment, this is all in the tertiary sector. طيب economic growth and quantity of people working and the quality of people's working conditions. يبقى economic growth and the quality of people working conditions are lower if a greater portion of workers are employed in the primary sector. يبقى هنا كمان this is another story, other than the quality, other than the contribution of that to the primary sector to the GDP, it's also that there are poor, that there is poor quality of working conditions if you are employed in the primary sector. يعني you are a coal miner. When a coal miners, they work under severe working conditions. You are a farmer. Again, you are working outdoors all day long. The weather conditions may not be good, may affect you negatively. Okay? Right. Unemployment can be high in agriculture. يعني underemployment could be high. انه هنا دي مثلا a plot of land could be having 10 people working on it rather than 6 people. يبقى هنا this is underemployment، لانه هنا in this situation يعني there is it is actually هنا underemployment in the sense ان هما it's less productive. يبقى هنا lower productivity. if 10 people are doing the work of 6 people, then in this situation there is lower productivity. لأن productivity is measured by what? Total output divided by the inputs used to produce it. if the output is constant but more people are doing it, then the productivity is less. طيب ما productivity is less يبقى احنا عندنا class economic development. If productivity is high, then high economic development. هتلاقوا إنه rich countries they are relying on more machines, فالproductivity هتكون per person is higher. فهنا again lower productivity and greater reliance على products that are cheaper, will sell cheap in the international markets. This will lead to being in the low economic developed countries. فاهمين ولا مش فاهمين؟ يا جماعة عندكم أسئلة؟
Understand
فاهمين؟
this. Yes, miss.
طب differences
Yes.
in concentration on a narrow range of experts. هنا كمان this is related to that. هنا differences in primary, secondary and tertiary. You'll find that إنه less economically developed economies they are relying على primary sector, و the most economically developed will be relying على tertiary sector. وهنا when they are selling abroad, okay, they are selling less economically developed, they will sell primary sector products, which is way cheaper than if you are selling a final finished product. يبقى countries that export few ranges of products will be severely affected by changes in supply. Demand for manufactured goods and services are usually higher than demand for primary products as incomes rises. يبقى هنا there is, if I am selling on the international market, in the international market people do not demand primary. يعني أنا if I am buying, I wouldn't want to buy a cotton fabric. I would want to buy a cotton shirt. فهمتوا الفرق؟ فهنا in this situation the demand for the cotton shirt, which is a secondary sector product, would be higher than the demand for a cotton fabric. فهنا that's why you'll find that the primary sector products when they sell very cheap, whereas the secondary sector products when they sell they will be very expensive. يبقى this brings less income to the country. Differences in productivity. Countries with low output per worker will tend to have low income per head, and so have for instance lower education and lower healthcare. طيب تاني, what did we discuss? What did we get to know now? What did you know now? المفروض ان انتوا دلوقتي عارفين ال difference economic development between countries, changes, or what are the causes in different economic development between countries. يبقى why countries are considered to be high economic development أو low, يعني high living standard, low poverty, high living standard, low poverty, more choices, and so on. You are scoring high on then you are scoring high on these aspects, the following aspects. LAA, differences in incomes, this is one thing. Differences in savings, another point. Okay, يبقى difference in income, difference in saving, difference in installments, difference population, difference in education and healthcare, differences in concentration on a narrow product, and differences in productivities. Clear?
Yes.
طب قول لي يا عمرو one reason that is related to difference in economic development between countries.
Your voice keeps cutting. What are you asking me?
One reason for the difference between economic development between countries.
Incomes.
Incomes, yes, okay.
Population. Population.
Population, great. Ryan, another one. Ryan. ريان معانا في الحصة؟ اوكي. طب لو معانا أنا I want a difference between economic development of countries. Okay. The causes of differences in economic development are interrelated. Countries can be subject to underdevelopment trap. يعني إيه? If the country is poor, it will keep on becoming poor. يعني if the incomes of people they are low, incomes of people are low, then the savings will be low, then less money will be available for investment, then less consumer كمان, and there might be more resources utilized in doing consumer goods rather than capital, than investing in capital. This lack of capital means ان احنا نبقى عندنا less productivity and less incomes, and it will keep on repeating. يبقى incomes are low, savings are low, less money is available for development of the capital. The country will stay poor. Why countries would want to achieve economic development? لأن economic development, what does it mean? It means higher GDP, gross domestic product, and living standard of people will improve. Okay, and there is it will be providing people to social choices. It gives economic and social, it gives expansion in the range of economic and social choices. طيب, economic growth has the potential to raise material living standard. يبقى كل ما يبقى عندي economic growth يعني عندي greater incomes, so then people will be able to improve their material living standard. يعني have better cars, have better houses, have better education for their children, and so on. يبقى كل ما GDP to improve, then the material living standard will increase. If there is high real GDP, higher GDP, real GDP consists of both more consumers and capital goods, the country's population should be able to enjoy more goods and services in the future. يبقى if I am having higher real GDP, يعني GDP after adjusting it to inflation, and we are investing it not only to produce consumer goods, but also to produce capital goods. يبقى if we are investing the money in the country in both capital goods and consumer goods, then in the future the population will be able to enjoy more goods and services. طيب اوكي, امال ايه يا مس؟ امال طيب if بقى we are investing only in consumer goods, يعني let's imagine the money that we are having now, we are investing it only in consumer goods and we are investing less in capital goods. Then in this situation, in the future, we will not have more products produced to people. Clear? If I am not having economic growth, أو if I'm not, مش actually لا, أنا عايزة أقول if I am not investing in capital goods, if I am having economic growth, but the money that is earned in the population in the country is only utilized to produce consumer goods. طب consumer goods they will خلاص they will be used up. But the money that we are having or the GDP that we are earning, we're only using it to produce consumer goods. This means that yes, we are enjoying more goods and services now. However, in the future, there won't be enough goods to satisfy everyone. طب what is better? What is better in part of the money that I have, I will invest in consumer goods to fulfill the needs of the current population, and part of the money will be كمان invested in capital goods, to invested in machines, so that these machines will allow a greater output to happen in the future. يبقى satisfy the current needs and wants of people, but also have certain money injected or certain money investment for satisfying the future needs and wants of people. Is this point clear?
Yes.
Yes.
Right. Life expectancy might be increased and infant mortality rate may be reduced. تاني, انتوا why are we, احنا بنتكلم على why governments seek to achieve economic development. انت عايزة economic development ليه؟ أنا عايزة economic development عشان I want the real GDP per head to increase. I want the income per person, which means that the income of one person will increase. I want the living standard of people to increase. I want economic choices. Okay? طيب. life expectancy may increase قلنا and infant mortality rate may be reduced. ليه؟ علاقته بالايكونوميك ديفلوبمنت؟ ما الايكونوميك ديفلوبمنت is human development index اللي ليها علاقه بالايه؟ اللي ليها علاقه بال life expectancy at birth. يبقى كل ما يبقى country عندها higher economic development, this means that the healthcare services in the country are improved. This means that the education in the country is improved. طيب, okay, a healthy population is a productive population, an educated population is a productive population as well. Educated and skilled is productive. Accordingly, incomes will increase. Infant mortality rate may be reduced as well. Why infant mortality? يعني a number of people that die divided by the total population times 1,000. يبقى less people will be dying. Less people that are very young age are dying. طب why less people are dying? Less people are dying because of improvement in the healthcare sector. يبقى people they don't die early. Old age, they stay old for a long period of time. يعني مثلا life expectancy in the country is 80 or 90. People are expected to live 80 years or 90 years. Then this country is having a high HDI, high rating على HDI. يبقى this is the point ان انا عايزه mortality rate، عايزه government عايزه ايه عامه؟ عايزه welfare of people. The welfare of people will be earned or will be achieved if I am having if I am having better healthcare. يبقى life expectancy should be reduced. Infant mortality should be reduced. Dependency ratio should be reduced. Economic development, هنا for economic development to be achieved, all people should have access to higher living standards. يبقى all people، يبقى أنا عايزة إيه؟ distribution، عايزة distribution of income، عايزة equal distribution of income. I want to reduce poverty. How to reduce poverty؟ إنه أنا I have to have equal distribution of income. يبقى هنا to have HGI that is high, you have to have low differences between low differences between the rich and the poor. Okay, for this to occur, there shouldn't be uneven distribution between income of income and poverty. There should not be a distribution between income and poverty. طيب, if you are reducing the poverty, government are seeking to do what? They are seeking to reduce the poverty. This brings benefit both to the poor and to the wider society. Not only the poor, but also to the wider society. How? And how the poor will be having access to basic needs. فهنا in this situation, if he is having access to basic needs, then he is less he will develop less healthcare problems or less health problems. He's having good shelter, appropriate food, or adequate quantity of food and so on. فهنا he is having basic needs. Then the government doesn't have to spend on these. The income of the government can be utilized elsewhere to improve the economy. That improves in the mental and physical health. The government aims at improving the mental and physical health. تاني لأنه a healthy population is a productive population. فهنا if I am providing the necessities, then the government spending will be utilized elsewhere to improve the economy. هنا if I am having improved mental and physical health, then قلنا a healthier population is a productive population. Raises their expectations. يبقى if you are having reduction in poverty, benefit both the poor and the rich, but it raises their expectation. Makes them become more productive in turn, though. I want economic development, then in this situation, why I will make the workers more productive. Why it's important to have HDI, our human development, that is high, because I want to have a greater productivity. But the more productivity, then the lower the average cost of the products produced in my home country, then we can export and bring foreign currency to the country. Okay? يبقى the more productivity, the lower average cost, then our cost of production will be reduced, then my prices will be competitive on an international market. A reduction in poverty reduces pollution as well, as people will have more access to sanitation, environmentally friendly. They have more access to sanitation and environmentally friendly forms of heating. طيب, expanding the range of economic and social choices increases what بقى? If I am expanding the range, يبقى هنا أخدتوا بالكم إن إحنا بنتكلم على إيه تاني؟ let's يعني be reminded إنه the reduction in poverty brings benefits to the poor and to the society. But this is what we are talking about. Actually, which is a part of why governments seek to achieve economic development. يبقى هنا why governments, they want economic development. They want economic development because GDP will increase. This is one point. Because there will be higher living standard for people. Because economic growth has the potential to raise material living standards. Because if higher real GDP consists of both consumers and capital goods, يبقى هيبقى عندي more productivity or more output in the future. Life expectancy is another reason why the government would want to have economic development and higher living standards. But all of these are why the government, they want to achieve economic development. They want to كمان reduce poverty as well. The government would want كمان to have to improve the economic development in order to have expanding range of economic and social choices. They want to increase the choices, the economic and social choices. يبقى هنا they want freedom and self-esteem. يبقى what are the economic and social choices? Freedom and self-esteem, like increasing access to education, healthcare, and participation in the political process. education, improved healthcare, improved and participation in political process. This is كل دوت معناه ان عندي economic development. This improves the quality of people's lives and enhances future economic performance. When people are making a choice, okay, they are voting for what they believe is right, then in this situation, maybe improvements will happen. But the quality of people's life is increased and economic performance will be increased as well. Again, if I am having economic development, if my country is scoring high on the economic development, this could be a vicious cycle. يعني people are having high incomes, they are capable of spending on education and healthcare, then they are developing their skills further. Then when they are developing their skills, they will be working. They will be working and earning incomes that can be saved and invested in further growth. Questions? Questions? يبقى the government is wanting to achieve economic growth عشان to increase GDP, to increase the living standard, to increase economic and social choices, to improve material living standard as well. They want to improve life expectancy. They want to improve, they want to have economic development in order to reduce poverty. Okay, they want wider choices for the society, and they want to expand the range of economic and social choices. But this will give them freedom. طيب, what are the conditions of economic development? يبقى هنا the conditions of economic development, there needs to be improvement in the quality and quantity of resources. يبقى for you to have economic development, then the quantity and quality of the resources that are available should be improved. This can happen by more investment. If investors are investing, then they can improve the quality or quantity of resources. Improvement in education, in training, in healthcare. كل دول are raising what? كل دول are raising the economic development. يبقى better education, better training, better healthcare, better investment. This could raise not only the GDP, but also the quality of people's lives. يبقى this improvement in education or training or healthcare والكلام ده, this improves the quality of life and their life expectancy and their choice. Okay. طيب, the problems facing economies with relatively low economic development. يبقى those economies that are having low economic development, what are the problems? They are having high growth of the population. يبقى the number of people that are living in the country are very high. They do give a lot of birth. They do give a lot of birth. They have a lot of children. فهنا instead of the money earned by the national income, instead of using it in order to develop the economy further, in order to improve education, healthcare, infrastructure, which will bring more investments, I am using the money that is earned by the nation to feed that extra children that we are having. يبقى what are the problems facing those who are having low economic development is that there is high population growth. So whatever income the country is doing, GDP أو GN, gross national income أو gross domestic income, the income made by the country over a period of time, instead of using it to improve the economy, we are using it to feed more people. يبقى مش هيبقى عندي economic development. طيب, ممكن يكون عندي high levels of international debt. نفس الكلام, إنه if the money earned by the country, okay, the majority of it will go and in order to settle the debts of the country. يبقى money that we are earning each and every year, all of it, or majority of it, will be utilized to repay the bank loans that the government took earlier with its interest rate. Less money will be invested into the country for economic growth. Even many poor countries, they borrow heavily in the past. They did borrow heavily in the past. A large portion of a country's income will be used in repaying foreign loans. يبقى هنا a large portion of country's income. يبقى the country's income will be repaid للforeign loan. We are repaying the foreign loan with its interest charges. But then I have less for the development of my country. Reliance on export of primary products. As I told you, exports of primary products are cheaper than exports of secondary products. Besides, rich countries, اللي هم highly developed countries, they will put a lot of restrictions on ويحطوا a lot of tariffs or taxes on the import of these goods. يبقى I want to sell overseas, I'll try meeting the standards. مثلا I want to sell my products overseas. Let's imagine I will want to sell my products in Europe. Okay, فهنا in this situation you will find that European countries they are putting high taxes و high tariffs on the product coming from the Middle East. يبقى that's the point إنه هنا they are putting high taxes. Why is this? So because they don't want these countries to develop. يبقى they don't give the chances for these countries to develop. Some poor countries receive relatively less for export. You are receiving less for export. Why you're receiving less for export? Because you are exporting primary goods, okay? And you are having to pay more of the inputs because you are paying for secondary goods. If you are exporting your products abroad, you will be receiving less. One reason receiving less لأن you're exporting in the primary form. The second one, you are exporting in another country and you are exporting your primary products. For primary products are cheaper. You will having to pay when you are importing secondary products. Secondary products are more expensive. But this is why lower economic growth will happen to your economy. لأن you are relying on exporting a product that is cheap abroad, will not bring you a lot of income. Several primary markets are dominated by consuming countries. And these rich countries usually use their buying power to keep down the prices of the primary products, because it's either I will sell to that country or I won't be able to sell. They know this. They know that my country is obliged, has got to sell them. Then they will start manipulating and they will start buying my products at a cheaper price. Also, fluctuation in the prices of some primary products occur due to climate changes and other factors affecting natural resources. Okay. في fluctuation كمان لأنه these kinds of primary products they are affected by weather conditions مثلا for example. فيحصل fluctuation in supply فيحصل fluctuation in the prices. Supply may be good weather conditions, for supply of primary products will be high, for prices will go down. Or supply severe weather conditions, accordingly supply will be restricted, for prices will go up. فكده كمان we don't know what to expect from selling products, primary products abroad. Lack of investment in human capital and capital goods. You are not providing education. If you're not investing in human capital, you're not providing a good education, not providing good healthcare, and accordingly their productivity will fall. Hello, you are not educated, you are not educating the labor force in your country, you are not investing in capital goods, so accordingly they will be less productive and thus they will be less competitive. Immigration of key workers is another problem. لأنه who is immigrating? It is the doctors, the nurses, the ones that are professionals. But these professionals are leaving the country to live in another country. فهنا they will be leaving my country with low GDP. طيب هنا unbalanced economies, certain markets may be underdeveloped such as financial sector. يبقى in developing nations, in poor nations ممكن ما يبقاش عندهم يبقى عندهم underdeveloped financial sector. يعني الاريا بتاعت البانكينج والانشورنس والكلام دوت is very low provision. فهنا then this will affect the investments and savings. Then less people will be saving and less people will be investing for the expansion. Or less people will be investing, or less investors will be investing. يبقى هنا lack of developed financial sector is likely to discourage savings and investment. مفيش developed financial sector يعني مفيش developed banks, مفيش developed institutions that will lend you. Okay. فمش هيحصل. It's only a couple of banks and they are reluctant to lend. خلاص the project will stop. Questions يا شباب؟
No, miss.
طيب. How can we measure to promote economic development؟ يبقى أنا مهمتي إن أنا لازم يبقى عندي economic development. How can I do that؟ إنه هنا إنه the government may be intervening. How it may be doing import substitution strategy. يعني it doesn't want my locals to import. It doesn't want my locals to buy products from abroad. Why? Because I want the local businesses to be selling well. يعني أنا if I am not allowing the locals to buy imported products, then they will buy the local alternative. This will mean that that local business will be facing a higher demand on its products. So accordingly, it will start to expand. It will start to hire more people for the expansion. It will start to benefit. كمان it will even benefit from economies of scale. So accordingly, their average cost will decrease. They can charge then lower prices, and they will become what do you call it? Can become competitive in the international market. But that's on the short run. I want to protect my local industries. I want to support them. يبقى import substitution strategy which involves protection of the domestic اللي هو local industries against the foreign competition. Okay, what do I do then? It كمان and how يعني what is the effect إن أنا I want the local industries to grow. So I want to protect them for a period of time until they grow. When they grow, then they will be able to compete in the international markets again. طب advantages is that if the government is intervening via protecting the local industry, in that it can increase domestic output. Local businesses will be demanded, they will be productive, they will increase output, they will employ people, we raise employment, and the country's trade in goods and services balance can improve that. الفاليو أنا عندي trade balance يعني value of imports أنا عايزاه يكون equal to value of exports. فإحنا if we are exporting excessive if you are importing if you are importing excessively, then the money flowing out of the country. If there is excess import over export, or there is a greater value of imports over exports, معناها and I'm buying products from abroad, معناها money flying from my economy to another economy. يعني the national income that I am making in country X will be utilized in country Y. Why utilizing in country Y? For the development of country Y. Why? Because country Y is exporting its products to us. طيب يبقى أنا I don't want to do that. يبقى the more I am the more less imports, my country is having reduced imports, then I am making a balance of payment. I'm equating the value of imports and the value of exports, and this is one of the economic objectives. الجوفرمنت عايزة إنه يبقى ال value of imports تبقى قد ال value of exports. Now I am restricting the imports, so let's hope that the exports will stay. I'm reducing the value of imports. فهنا in this situation I reduce imports. فيبقى عندي balance of payment. لو كنت أنا excessively importing, I will reduce the value of imports, so I will be able to improve my balance of payment. طيب ايه limitations بقى بتاعت ان انا I am protecting my local industries, I am restricting imports, انه it may raise the prices in the short run لان لسه هما these are not highly productive, these are not benefiting from economies of scale. But in this situation their cost is still high, so they will charge higher prices. Besides they are now afraid of competition. يعني earlier they used to be afraid, local businesses used to be afraid of international competition. Imported products will be available, so consumers can buy them, especially that they are cheaper and less expensive. this can raise the prices in the short run. This can reduce choices. لأن I am limiting the choice. أنا مش بخلي الناس in my country to buy the imported products. But they are not having a choice. They are obliged إن هم to buy بس the local products. So what if they don't like the quality? What if the prices are very expensive? فأنا I'm restricting the choices for them. It may lower economic welfare. فهنا we are lowering the economic development. ليه؟ لأنه part of the economic development إن أنا يكون عندي choice. يبقى أنا عندي freedom of choice. فهنا I am lowering the economic development. Okay, other countries may retaliate. Retaliate يعني they will do the same. If I am restricting the imports coming from country Y, and a country Z, and I am restricting the imports coming from country Y, then country Y will have restrictions on my products as well. I will not be able to export to them. They will هم مش أنا حطيت tariffs وquotas على ال imported products from country Y، كمان country Y هتحط tariffs والquotas على ال imported products from my country. They will do the same. فهنا in this situation ما بقى I could not help my local industries. يعني maybe I am maybe yeah I will not be able to هنا in this situation if they are retaliating. the final effect ان احنا we are not improving any economic development. Domestic industries may become too reliant on protection without seeking to increase their efficiency and competitiveness. Again, it might lead to inefficiencies. يعني this situation is a market يعني will lead to it's not the best option for my economy. ليه؟ لأن producers can keep on becoming inefficient. مش مهتمين. لما you know that they will charge a high price. Okay, due to the waste, they will charge a high price, and then in this situation, consumers will be obliged to buy from them because they don't have any other choice. They will not, they will feel complacent, they will feel okay. The government is subsidizing, the government is helping. فهنا in this situation, they will not become efficient. They are not afraid to charge a high price. They won't lose consumers to competitors. Like in the earlier situation without government intervention, in the previous situation without government intervention, these small businesses are afraid of the competition from abroad, so they will start to become efficient. Okay, يبقى with the government intervention, I am not afraid. And thus I will not improve my efficiency. I'm not afraid because I am the only seller in the country. But the government is not actually helping. Maybe the government is making the situation worse. طب in the absence of the government, بالعكس, I will start to become as efficient as possible, reduce my cost as possible, improve my efficiency, and improve my competitiveness. Like, if I don't do this, then I will bankrupt. Is that clear?
Yes.
يبقى تاني الجفرمنت احنا بنتكلم في ايه؟ government intervention to improve economic development. اول حاجه protecting the local industries، او اول حاجه انه protecting the local industries from the imported products. This is the first one. The second one is promoting exports by exposing domestic firms to market forces. يبقى you can promote exports by allowing your companies to export its products abroad. The success of this policy depends on the firm being able to compete with foreign firms or not. Yani if your domestic companies, they can produce with a cheaper cost of production and cheaper prices, then that will win out. They will win out in that competition. Promoting exports by exposing domestic firms to market forces. They may be able to compete with foreign firms, which may have been established for some time, has built consumer loyalty, and benefits from economies of scale. You may not be able to do that. Most probably you will not. If you are exporting a small business, if you are exposing a small business and allowing it to export, it's small, it's not benefiting from economies of scale, it lacks knowledge, then in this situation, its prices will be higher than the competitors that are having lower prices. So people will not buy from your products. People will buy from the others that are cheaper. يبقى هنا you will not succeed in the international market if you're not efficient. Improve countries' infrastructure, capital stock, education, training, and healthcare. يبقى this is why, because you want to attract multinationals. You want to attract multinationals. This is a business that has got operations, factories, retailers in more than one country. If you have operations in more than one country, you are a multinational company. Why do we want to host them? Why do we want the multinational to come and get established in my land? I want to host them because they will come and employ people from our country. They will not bring the foreigners with them. They will locate a multinational located in Egypt. It will employ Egyptians. It can train and educate the workers. يبقى Procter & Gamble مثلا عندهم a very strong training scheme. فهنا if you are to join Procter & Gamble, they will be giving you intense training in different areas of the business. فهنا أنا كgovernment I want that kind of education to happen to my people so they become more productive. يبقى أنا كhosting country I'm interested to have the multinational setting up because they will be employing people, they will be improving and training workers, they can bring technology and promote infrastructure. طب what are the disadvantages of multinationals بقى؟ إن هما أنتوا بتقولوا إن هما they are creating jobs بس jobs دي are very low paid. فهنا it will not be benefiting a lot. They are providing workers with poor working conditions than in home countries. Poor working conditions, longer working hours in the hosting country مثلا. longer working hours فهنا I am exploiting them يعني. Deplete non-renewable resources. يبقى deplete يعني they will come and use up the renewable resources. They will deplete the natural resources, and then what will happen? And then after they deplete them, then they will close their factories and operations in your country and relocate in another country. فهنا this is bad effect on your country. They will cause pollution. They are having مثلا emissions coming from their machines. They are having emissions coming from their transport vehicles and so on, which can add to the problem of global warming. Put pressure on host government to deregulate معاهم. يعني for example put pressure على ال hosting government إن هم يبقى exempted from the taxes. طيب limitations بقى إيه؟ limitations is that interest charges on loans can be high, which makes some products unviable. لا دي مش sorry أنا دخلت على limitations من قبل ما أقول لكم the point. ال point is borrowing from abroad. Okay, will be borrowing from abroad. Why borrowing from the abroad? In order to improve your عشان تعمل development, economic development. Government can promote economic development by borrowing from abroad. They borrow, they take money in order to raise productivity and generate enough income to repay loans. If fund make a contribution to high living standard. If funds make a contribution to high living standards. This will be successful. طب how they will be making contribution to high living standards يعني if this money that I am borrowing from other countries I am using them in projects that will improve the economic development in projects that will improve the productivity in the country فهنا ساعتها هيبقوا productive لكن if I am using them عشان to improve infrastructure أو if I am using them عشان إن أنا مثلا زي في مصر لما he borrowed the president, he borrowed money in order to enlarge the Suez Canal. This is not needed. يعني international trade is not increasing and there is no problem with the size of the Suez Canal for you to enlarge it. So why did you take why did you borrow money and put it in a project that will not improve the economic development of the country? Could have taken this money to build factories and employ people in these factories to improve the living standard of the people. Is that clear? يبقى if you borrow from abroad, you will be successful if that borrowing is invested into real projects that will bring national income to the country. لكن a project like building a road, ولا a project like building a mosque, ولا a project like building, like enlarging the Suez Canal, these are all projects that are useless. They are not allowing improvement in productivity. Is this clear? Is this point clear يا شباب ان انت you borrow in order to open factories in order to bring projects that will improve the economic development. طيب however what is the problem of that? And interest charges, it's you are borrowing زي if a person is borrowing from the bank, it is equivalent to, it is similar to a country borrowing from another country, or it's similar to a country borrowing from the International Monetary Fund. You borrow, then interest charges will have to be paid on the amount you are borrowing. You will have to return the money with interest charges. There is a risk that the project may be less successful as expected and countries will accrue that. And زي مثلا enlarging the Suez Canal project. This is a project that is it's not profitable. It's not a project, يعني we invested money and this project is not giving us any return. فهنا we're accruing debts only. We are repaying that money that we borrowed with interest charges. But the money is wasted يعني. Some of the money used may be unprofitable, they are unprofitable, they are prestigious projects or military or many and some of the projects are unprofitable, are just prestigious projects or military projects زي اللي انا قلت لكم بتاع Suez Canal, it's not profitable. But this is the limitation of borrowing. يبقى تاني, how the government promotes economic development, it can be أول حاجة doing what? It can be import substitution strategy. Let the consumers in my home country rely على domestic product. I will be protecting the local industries. يبقى promote economic development إنه import substitution. Another one is promoting export. Try to export your products abroad in hope that it will bring foreign currency. And improve the infrastructure with the capital, with education, with training in order to for productivity to increase. I am improving the I'm improving infrastructure capital وكده for multinationals to come and settle in my country, which will bring more incomes, higher living standards, and so on. وبعدين borrowing from abroad. طيب borrowing بقى أو relying على other countries, this is called foreign aid. يبقى if you're borrowing, okay, or you're taking money from other countries, this is called foreign aid. This money could be money that will be returned with interest, or this money could be money that will not be returned, like a subsidy. It will not be our grant from other countries, a grant from other countries that doesn't have to be repaid. يبقى economic development can happen if a country is relying على foreign aid as well. Foreign aid, as I told you earlier, إنه هي you can have another country is helping you or more than one country is helping you. The limitations of that is that it may have potential to increase development but can create economic and political dependency. It can create economic and political dependency. يعني for example, I am نعم يا عمر.
Miss, I have to go now.
كنت عايزة أخلص الشابتر, فاضل 2
Gotta
pages.
go. Oh, I have to get ready now because
It's
my
a
family
start
already
time?
got ready and
Okay.
oh, they're going.
طيب جو يا
Thank
عمر.
you.
جو يا عمر.
Bye, miss.
باي. أتمنى إن الباقي يقعد معانا بس 10 minutes. I will be finishing the chapter. I don't want to end it now. It's only 10 minutes to the end of the chapter. إنه هنا limitations إنه let's imagine that my country is continuously borrowing from United States. فهنا in this situation I am economically and politically dependent. I will have to agree to their whatever political decisions. Okay, يعني هقول لكم nowadays why most of the Arab countries they are not helping Palestine. Why? Why they cannot help Palestine? Because of that point, which is and these countries are politically and economically dependent على foreign aid from these countries, from International Monetary Fund or from the United States. فهم they don't have the freedom to take an action, a political action or economic action. Is this clear يا شباب؟ It can postpone necessary reforms. يبقى هنا if you are depending on foreign aid from other countries, then there might have been actions that you can do to improve your economy, but you are postponing it. It can bring in appropriate technology. كمان the help is not necessarily coming to you in the form of money. It might be coming to you in the form of capital. يعني let's imagine that your country is highly populated like India. What is best for that country is that it becomes labor intensive. And the industries in India should be labor intensive. طب they receive foreign aid or they receive a gift from other countries, which is technical equipment, which is machinery that will be utilized in the مثلا car manufacturing sector, or machinery that will be utilizing in the cloth or garment production sector. And in this situation, this machines will be replacing workers. Accordingly, yes, I am getting help, but this is inappropriate help. This help will lead to my country having greater unemployment. But this is not useful. But sometimes it creates dependency. I am economically and politically dependent. I don't have freedom, and it might be bringing technology that is not suitable. This is not the technology that my country is in need of, and it is postponing a necessary reform. طيب, risk that any financial foreign aid may be used for non-profitable projects. يعني احنا مثلا the president ما شاء الله in this kind of money that we are receiving, we are building bridges, we are building railway stations, we are building mosques and things that are not profitable. These are projects that are not profitable. فهنا it will not be helpful. طب another problem is that corruption may exist in its use. يعني ممكن يبقى فيه bribes, ممكن يبقى فيه governmental officials taking part of the aid for themselves, for their personal use, things of the like. فهنا this is a problem. Corruption may occur when a country is receiving foreign aid. The aid may be given in the form of tied aid. But this means يعني no, yes, I'm gonna give you money, but you have to use that money in order to in products that are coming from my country. يعني for example, Sweden is giving Egypt money, but it is obliging them that you have to use that money to buy Swedish products. And in this situation, it is tied to strings. Maybe the products are not useful for us, but this aid is tied to strings. And sometimes it's not برضو very useful. Foreign aid can be bilateral or multilateral. Bilateral يعني coming aid from one country. Multilateral coming from more than one institution, organization, or country. Okay, يبقى bilateral is one government helping another government. If we're saying Emirates is helping Egypt financially, then this is bilateral help. If we are saying that World Bank is helping Egypt or United Nations is helping Egypt, then a World Bank is collecting its money, the money from the World Bank. It's not coming from one country, it's coming from more than one country. Then that's the point. And coming from multilateral aid is channeled through international organizations to developing nations. Foreign aid can be for a variety of forms. Could be a grant, which is not to be repaid, or could be a loan, which is to repaid with interest rate charges. Okay, or could be in the form of supply of goods and services, technical assistance and government. ممكن يكونوا يدونا machines, ممكن يدونا training, ممكن يكونوا يدونا money that we will have to return back, وممكن تبقى money that will not have to be returned back. The International Monetary Fund and World Bank have been criticized for attaching conditions to some of the loans they make. يبقى هنا international they are having actually مش conditions بس ده very severe conditions. يعني for example International Monetary Fund when they are giving funds to Egypt they are obliging the government to remove subsidies from the poor. يعني bread is subsidized, petrol is subsidized, things that are subsidized. Each and every time the government is borrowing from the International Monetary Fund, the International Monetary Fund is forcing the government to do reforms for removing subsidies. Okay? They require governments to follow structural adjustment programs اللي منها اللي أنا بقول لكم removal of these subsidies. هنا which are designed to increase the quantity and quality of resources. However, in the short run, reduce economic growth and development. For example, a government may be required to cut in expenditure. هنا yes إنه ده برضه الريفورم بتاعهم is إنه government to cut on expenditure. طب cutting on expenditure معناها less education and less health care. فهنا in the short run, we are not benefiting much from that International Monetary Fund. Some people, the poor, will become poorer. Foreign aid is more likely to promote development if it is more generous. يبقى هنا it will effective امتى؟ لما تكون generous, the amount of money received is high, it is coming from more than one government, it is multilateral, coming from more than government or institution, it's united and is geared towards the need of the recipient. It's geared يعني it is tailored towards the needs. مش بس يديني machine which is not suitable for my country ولا my economy ولا كده. لا, it is the machine will be useful or يديني training that is actually useful and so on. Okay? That's it for today. Do you have questions? Questions يا عمرو? Question يا Ryan? Okay. Then have a good day يا شباب.